नमस्कार, राज्यसभा टीवी के खास कार्यक्रम संसदीय वाद विवाद में आपका स्वागत है। मैं हूं अरविंद कुमार सिंह। संसद के मानसून सत्र के दौरान राज्यसभा में एक बहुत ही अहम चर्चा हुई, वह थी देश की आर्थिक व्यवस्था को लेकर। आपने पिछले एपिसोड में देखा कि किस तरीके से सांसदों ने घरेलू और वैश्विक कारणों से बढ़ती महंगाई और कई अन्य सवालों पर काफ़ी गंभीर चर्चा की। इस एपिसोड में हम आपको दिखाएंगे कि सांसदों ने क्या अहम सुझाव दिए और सरकार ने क्या जवाब दिया।
Encasing. India's growth rate of an average of 7.6% over the last decade has been an admirable performance. The fact remains, sir, that with sustained efforts, current account deficit in the quarter which ended April 13 is a significant reduction on the current account deficit which was experienced in the comparable period. The fact remains that in spite of all allowances given to external commercial borrowing, short-term debt has remained in control, debt as a percentage of GDP has remained in control, and fiscal consolidation program has remained on track. FDI is down, but FDI is more or less comparable. Having said this, sir, on a prescriptive point, I have 6 suggestions to make. The first and foremost point, sir, is the restoration of investor confidence. Wherever I have traveled, the one important question which investors have repeatedly asked me is, why have you stalled all important legislations? Mr. Singh, you are an important member of the Indian Parliament, but you people don't function. You people do not enact legislation. People have told me that the crucial legislations, all these remain stalled. So how to really make institutions which are designed to function in a manner which is appropriate is central, sir, to the restoration of investor confidence. Second, sir, that with an important legislation which is pending before us, namely the Food Security Bill, the issues of adherence to the fiscal rectitude will be in question. I request him and urge him that the path of fiscal rectitude must not be abandoned. Macroeconomic stabilization program cannot be abandoned. And if for this he has to rationalize the subsidy, compress his expenditure, and take other measures so that monetary policy and fiscal policy can act in tandem, a disproportionate burden of our macroeconomic stabilization program has remained with the Mint Street in Bombay. We need to make monetary policy act in tandem with fiscal policy to ensure macroeconomic stabilization. My third important request to the finance minister is that we need to do the short term and the long term. In the short term, he knows as well as all of us do that stabilizing the currency is an exceedingly important thing. We need to therefore shrink the supply of rupees, enhance the supply side on dollars, to manage the exchange rate in a manner which, while preventing excessive volatility and an excessive dependence on reserves, is able to stabilize the currency. Growth, sir, must be a centerpiece of any economic strategy in the medium term, even though in the short term, currency stabilization has to be an important feature. It requires national effort, it requires bipartisan support, and I do believe that we would be performing a national duty to extend that support.
Basanti Stanley.
The Indian economy is in the crossroads of largely because of various domestic and global factors. The domestic factors, indiscriminate government spending essentially on non-planned expenditures. A recent survey says that out of every 1 rupee spent by the government is only 25 paise, not only that is reaching the poor and the needy, from which the government is spending. Complete failure on the issue of developing petroleum resources locally without any concerted and time-bound policy in oil self-sufficiency. The inability to increase the share of manufacturing in GDP, which makes the country driven by export of services, which will take a hit as the conditions for export of services decline globally. High levels of inflation, which is the cause of rupee losing its value, because any currency would depreciate if the inflation is consistently higher than real interest rate. In India, the difference has been consistently above over 5% every year since 1994, which would theoretically mean rupee will depreciate at the rate of not less than 5% every year. Shoring up rupee, which can only through reduction in current account deficit, for which measures to be initiated, providing disincentives for import of gold, already that has been done, and other items of non-essentials. There could be levied more tax on that. Definitely, sir, our economy will improve on this. The long-term measures, sir, initiative time-bound steps through administrative reforms for preventing waste of money in areas of social spending, oil exploration to step up domestic oil production, strengthen our manufacturing capacity, agriculture production to be increased through innovative techniques as well as better storage facility. The Indian economy definitely can emerge more strong, and if at all the recovery steps are being taken, the proper steps are being taken in time. Thank you, sir.
Vaishnav Parida.
Sir, our hope of flowing of FDI investment into our country is becoming a daydream now. Why the FDI investment is not, investors are not feeling safe to come to India? It is because of our mismanagement and corruption in every sphere. Unemployment is growing day by day in our country. During this two UPA ministries, only this period, only 4 lakhs of jobs were created in India. And on the other hand, 1.26 lakhs of workers lose their jobs. The farmers are frustrated, and your Narega is a failure, and the food security program, I think, how far it will be fruitful, that is also in doubt. Sir, another thing, we allotted 2 lakhs of crores rupees for our social welfare program. But how much it will reach to the real poor people, that I am in doubt, sir. Panchayat Raj has not become the decentralization of power. It has become the decentralization of corruption.
Mr. Y.S. Chaudhary.
Our rupee, the way it got devalued, that shows the sheer health of our economy. We have been facing continuously problems because of the inconsistent policies. We are neither exploring our natural resources, or we are dependent on boosting our exports. Mainly lopsided policies, like building dams without understanding where the water is going to come, or creating projects without getting clearance of environment, etc. Indian banks, which is really into trouble today. As a matter of fact, a lot of companies are queuing up there. Infrastructure is most important, but our country, we have always defocused because of our lopsided policies. 70% of crude oil is imported, wherein our entire forex is going up for that. And I think government has failed in every front.
D. Raja.
Indian government is emerging as a neoliberal government, not having any concern for the poor, for opening up our economy for FDI in various sectors. Sir, these are all very disastrous moves in the given situation. In fact, FDI declined from $15.7 billion in 2011-12 to $12.8 billion in 2012-13. But the government has been hiding behind in its own inability to control the imports of luxury items such as gold and jewelry. And this situation is likely to worsen with the depreciation of rupee. 1 rupee was equal to $1. That was the situation in 1947. Now it is 61 rupees to $1. The black money, which has been stashed to foreign countries, the total bad loans will be more than 2,50,000 crores, sir, between 2004-5 and 2011-12. Only 9 million jobs were created In addition, every year we have more than 12 million people joining the ranks of unemployed people in this country. Government is cutting down the expenditure or spending on social sector, on health and education. Government should increase the public spending on poor people. Government should strengthen the manufacture sector in order to create jobs, sir, and government should stop disinvestment in public sector industries, public sector banks.
Yes, please.
They are the strength of our economy.
Please, thank you. That is good.
I'm sure all sections of the House are very concerned and disturbed at the state of the economy, where the growth had fallen so drastically to 5%, sub 5%. So obviously receipts were down 60,000 crores. They cut the planned expenditure by 92,000 crores, but increased the non-planned expenditure by 32,000 crores to show a balanced, revised budget. All in all, what they have done, sir, is they have increased subsidy burden by 67,000 crores. They have reduced expenditure on defense. They have reduced the capital expenditure of the government of India by 77,000 crores. So instead of creating assets for the future, instead of creating assets for posterity, they are borrowing, they are increasing deficits, they are living hand to mouth, but using that money only to pay salaries and in financial imprudent expenses, but not investing in the capital infrastructure that this nation needs. That even on minority affairs, they have not spent 1,000 crores which are available in the budget. On tribal affairs, they have not spent 1,000 crores available in the budget. But in Panchayati Raj, they have not spent 1,300 crores. A lot was said on inflation, sir. I urge the finance minister to focus on the supply side, if at all they are looking to sort out the important problem of inflation. They introduced Manrega. You don't pay people for work not done. You pay people for work done. You don't create a country which is institutionalizing poverty. You don't create a country where it is good to be called poor. They gave us the coal scam. In the garb of security, they do transactions like Tata Trucks, Augusta Westland. They have scam upon scam in the defense sector.
Please.
They do the 2G scam. They do the Antrix scam. They give us consumption-led growth, but there's no job. If they were to stop smuggling of gold,
Now, please
rather than
conclude.
increasing the taxes on gold, please acknowledge where you have gone wrong and rectify your mistakes.
चर्चा में शामिल कुछ सांसदों का मानना था कि मौजूदा स्थिति से सरकार अकेले अपने बलबूते से नहीं निपट सकती, इसके लिए सामूहिक प्रयासों की ज़रूरत है और संसद को भी एक अहम भूमिका निभानी है क्योंकि वित्तीय महत्व के कई विधेयक संसद में लंबित हैं। फिलहाल लेते हैं एक छोटा सा ब्रेक और ब्रेक के बाद दिखाएंगे आपको आगे का वाद विवाद।
We believe in growth, but that growth must be inclusive. And that growth must be sustainable. Where environmental concerns, ecological concerns must be taken into account. That means we may have to sacrifice some growth. So be it. What can we do if the people who have lived for thousands of years in the Niyamgiri Hills say that they will not allow bauxite to be mined there? Now we have to respect that.
ब्रेक के बाद आपका स्वागत है। आप देख रहे हैं हमारा खास कार्यक्रम संसदीय वाद विवाद। इस चर्चा में शामिल कई सांसदों का मानना था कि सरकार तो अपने तरफ से कदम उठा ही रही है, लेकिन इन कदमों को और गतिशील बनाने की ज़रूरत है और ख़ासतौर पर सरकारी क्षेत्र में पैसे को और किफ़ायती तरीके से खर्च करने की ज़रूरत है और योजनाओं पर कड़ी निगरानी की भी। आगे आपको दिखाते हैं वाद विवाद का बाकी हिस्सा।
It's not very difficult for economy like ours, which is $1.7 trillion, to survive. The global financial crisis of 2008 and 9 changed the entire map of the world economy. Now we are talking about recession. Another problem is concerned, investment is still 30% plus. The gross domestic saving is around 32% plus. And so far these foreign direct investment is concerned, during the 4 years of the UPA period was barely $19.4 billion. Out of $256 that the foreign direct investment has come into the economy, Remaining $230 billion came during the last 9 years of the UPA rule. Foreign exchange reserves are concerned. The foreign exchange reserves were 6,191 billion rupees. 2012-13, despite adverse current account deficit of 4.8%, today the country is having 15,884 billion rupees. During 2009-10 and 2012-13, the prices of agricultural commodities, minimum support prices, were raised by nearly 70 to 75%. And when the minimum support prices of the certain commodities are increasing, then basically they are sending the signals to the market. Now, current account deficit is concerned, it is basically because the gap between the import and exports, and precisely because of the global recession, the demand for India's export is receding and our imports are inelastic. That's why the question basically is, in order to reduce the fiscal of this your current account deficit, when you try to raise the prices of petrol and diesel, you are making hue and cry, despite the fact that international prices are rising. People have gone on the record saying that Mahatma Gandhi Narega scheme is even a scam. Now, when 4 to 5 crore rural poor households are getting jobs, and about 3 to 4 crore person days of jobs are created every year at the expense of 35,000 to 40,000 crores of rupees. That is the reason, whatever measurement you use, the poverty has declined in rural area faster than the urban area. That's why not only UPA has succeeded in achieving rate of growth despite 5% today, but UPA also has succeeded in making growth inclusive.
Mr. Trivedi ji.
There is a parallel economy going on in our country. Can we say that all these statistics which are given are totally dependable when we know that the velocity of black money is higher than the velocity of white money? So I think that somehow or other this extent or the spectre of black money has to be tackled. It is an accepted position that apart from the structural changes which may be necessary in our economy, there is a need for a massive dose of foreign investment, foreign direct investment. Now, what is it that is holding up the foreign investments? The main reason is procrastination, red tapeism, controls, unnecessary laws, some of them required to be strongly dealt with. It is necessary, first of all, that at least 30% of the laws at the central level need to be scrapped, and at 40% at state level. If we want to invite foreign direct investments, we must know he's talking only of one window selection.
Naresh Gujral ji.
The country's economy has been brought to its knees by the irresponsible policies of this government. We are sandwiched between low growth on one side and high inflation on the other. 16 crore people are either underemployed or unemployed. Small factories and small businesses are closing by the day. Rupee is tumbling against all foreign currencies. Our industrialists are not investing in this country at all. They are all going abroad because they are fed up with the inaptitude and the fact that there is no decision-making happening in the government, added to the crony capitalism that we all witness. 33% of the planned fiscal deficit was used up only in the first 2 months of this fiscal year. In fact, the food security bill will add another 80,000 crores to our fiscal deficit. While I welcome the bill, but they have only taken care of the consumption part.
Anil Desai ji.
Economic situation of the country. On this issue, inflation, price rise is the biggest worry of one and all in the country. The people of the country have seen that scams have come to the fore. Every single important sector like roads development, you see in telecommunications, in coal sector also, the scam in the defense procurement, which has shaken the psyche of the nation. Industrial growth is in the negative. Apathy towards the farmer fraternity has resulted in the poor output in the agricultural sector. Introspection on the part of the government is a serious thing which government should take.
Now, Honorable Chidambaram.
Mr. Deputy Chairman, sir. You can't win this argument by saying nothing has happened in 9 years, that we have not added to capacity, we have not increased production, we have not provided growth, output has not increased. In every measure, any government that delivers any kind of growth will indeed add to capacity, will indeed add to growth, will indeed add to output. I came back to the Finance Ministry on the 1st of August. On the 6th of August, I made my first statement where I said the biggest challenge facing this country is fiscal deficit, and we have to go on the path of fiscal consolidation. I know I was savagely criticized in the press. They said fiscal deficit will go to 6.1%. The Kelkar committee recommended we should peg it at 5.3%. When I presented the budget, I was able to say we have contained it at 5.2%, but the actual numbers are even better. We have pegged it at 4.9%. Why does that not deserve any kind of credit, I want to know? We must put this country back on the path of fiscal consolidation and contain fiscal deficit to below 3% of GDP, which we did when, not during the NDA government, we did it in 2007-8. For the first time, fiscal deficit came below 3%. What does the Deputy Leader of the Opposition want to say about monetary policy? President Obama, 2 weeks ago, said, my next Fed chairman must have two objectives. One is price stability, the other is employment. Yes, the mandate of the central bank traditionally has been price stability. But I believe, my party believes, my government believes that price stability must be seen as part of a larger mandate of growth and employment. And I wish each party takes a stand on this. We believe in growth, but that growth must be inclusive. And that growth must be sustainable, where environmental concerns, ecological concerns must be taken into account. That means we may have to sacrifice some growth. So be it. What can we do if the people who have lived for thousands of years in the Niyamgiri Hills say that they will not allow bauxite to be mined there? Now we have to respect that. Investment. There are people who say FDI is necessary. There are people who say FDI will enslave this country. Current account deficit is because, and I'm using dollars as a synonym for foreign exchange. What is the current account deficit? It's the dollars we earn and the dollars we spend. The difference is the current account deficit. There's only one way to bridge it. Earn more dollars than you spend more dollars. If you cannot earn more dollars, well, spend less dollars. Import less oil, import less capital goods, import less gold, import less silver. Remain within the limit of your capacity to earn dollars. You will not have a current account deficit because you have to import. And if you don't have the dollars, the only way you can pay for those imports is to allow foreign capital flows to come to the country. And capital flows will come to the country only in one of three ways: FDI, or FII, or ECB. And among them, FDI is higher in the hierarchy than FII and ECB, which is why we have to attract FDI, because there's no other way we can pay for our imports. Please remember, there is an ODI, overseas direct investment. Indians are investing abroad. Indians are acquiring companies abroad. Indians are acquiring assets abroad. Indian companies are acquiring coal mines, petroleum fields abroad, and that is good for India. Just as we are acquiring assets abroad, when FDI comes in, they will come here to acquire assets or to create new assets. And that means more employment, more output, more wealth, and more per capita income. So let's take a stand on FDI. The last question. Prices. Let's take a stand. Are we going to give our farmers generous MSP, or are we going to be parsimonious with them? The same approach applies to Manrega. There are people who say you should not give those wages to rural India. People who say you should not give MSP to farmers. Nobody can say poverty has not declined. If poverty has declined, it is because it has declined more in rural India than in urban India. It has declined more in rural India because of Manrega wages and because of MSP. Therefore, sir, we have to take a position. Are we going to be generous towards those who are extremely poor by giving them better wages, better prices, even if it means, and I say this with responsibility, even if it means a slightly elevated inflation? I'm not defending inflation. Our inflation is high. Consumer price inflation is high. In the last 12 months, we've been able to moderate wholesale price inflation to below 5%. We've been able to contain core inflation to 2%, but consumer price inflation is high. And I take the point that unless we address the supply side constraints, consumer price inflation is not likely to fall. But even if there is slightly elevated inflation, are we going to deny to our people better wages and better prices? Let's take a stand. Why I've raised these 5 questions, so that we know what is the context in which policy is being made.
कुल मिलाकर देश की आर्थिक व्यवस्था को लेकर हुई राज्यसभा की चर्चा कई मायनों में बेहद शानदार रही। यह राज्यसभा के इतिहास की बेहतरीन चर्चाओं में से एक है, जिसमें सांसदों ने न केवल सरकारी नीतियों की आलोचना की, बल्कि अपनी ओर से कई सार्थक समाधान भी प्रस्तुत किए। सरकार ने भी इन तमाम सुझावों को माना और साथ ही साथ कहा कि आम आदमी की चिंता सरकार की सबसे बड़ी प्राथमिकता है और इस दिशा में वह किसी भी तरह के दबाव को बर्दाश्त नहीं करेगी। इस एपिसोड में फ़िलहाल यहीं तक, आगे मिलेंगे किसी और खास एपिसोड के साथ। तब तक के लिए धन्यवाद।